Trump's top aides are quietly drawing up plans that could see US forces strike inside Venezuela. A bold escalation to oust Nicolás Maduro, US brands a narco-dictator and fugitive from American justice. While the White House frames the campaign as counter-narcotics, Caracas braces for invasion, activating emergency powers. The stage is set for a high-stakes showdown. The push by top aides to US President Donald Trump to remove Nicolás Maduro as the leader of Venezuela has reportedly intensified in recent days. According to the New York Times, Trump administration officials are discussing a broad campaign that would escalate military pressure to try to force him out. It is being led by Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State and National Security Advisor. Only a small number of officials are involved in White House planning conversations on Venezuela. Some people briefed on the discussions suggested that Rubio and his allies were first looking for ways to oust Maduro without having to resort to direct US military action. Earlier, Rubio argued that Maduro is an illegitimate leader who oversees the export of drugs to the United States, which he says poses an imminent threat. In recent weeks, the US military launched lethal attacks on civilian boats that the Trump administration accused of smuggling drugs for Venezuelan gangs. However, US officials who were aware of the matter told the New York Times that Rubio was now shaping a more aggressive strategy, using intelligence provided by the Central Intelligence Agency. The officials added that the Pentagon has built up a force of more than 6,500 troops in the region. The intelligence agency's director, John Ratcliffe, and Stephen Miller, Trump's chief domestic policy advisor, both support Rubio's approach. Some current and former officials told NYT that there is a potential military operation targeting drug suspects in Venezuela.
The U.S. military has been planning potential military operations targeting drug trafficking suspects in Venezuela itself as a next phase, although the White House has not yet approved such a step.
Trump administration officials assert that Maduro sits atop Venezuela's cartel network. They can argue that removing him from power is ultimately a counter-narcotics operation. Rubio repeatedly cites the Justice Department's 2020 indictment of him and other Venezuelan officials on drug trafficking charges. He recently described Maduro as a fugitive from American justice and the head of a terrorist organization and organized crime organization that has taken over a country. In July, Trump signed a still-secret order directing the US military to use force against drug cartels his administration has labeled terrorists. The Pentagon began building up a large naval force in the Caribbean. Then came the US military strikes on civilian boats. Trump has announced 3 such operations in international waters since September 2nd that have killed at least 17 people, without presenting a legal basis for the attacks. The State Department increased a reward of $50 million for any information leading to Maduro's arrest and conviction on the drug charges. Trump has not explicitly stated that his goal is to depose Maduro, but he has boasted about the new military campaign in the Caribbean. Last week, in a speech at the UN General Assembly, Trump said,
"I've also designated multiple savage drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, along with 2 bloodthirsty transnational gangs, probably the worst gangs anywhere in the world, MS-13 and Tren de Aragua. Tren de Aragua is from Venezuela, by the way. Such organizations torture, maim, mutilate, and murder with impunity. They're the enemies of all humanity. And for this reason, we've recently begun using the supreme power of the United States military to destroy Venezuelan terrorists and trafficking networks led by Nicolás Maduro. To every terrorist thug smuggling poisonous drugs into the United States of America, please be warned that we will..."
When asked for a comment, the White House reiterated Trump's UN statement. It warned that President Trump is prepared to use every element of American power to stop drugs from flooding into our country and to bring those responsible to justice. Some senior US officials, most notably Richard Grenell, Trump's envoy to Venezuela and the head of the Kennedy Center, said any attempt to remove Maduro by force would be misguided. Grenell negotiated the release of several American hostages and reached an agreement for Venezuela to take back illegal immigrants held by the Trump administration. The larger outcomes Trump has pushed Grenell to try to secure through talks are closely held. Speaking at a conservative political action committee event this month in Paraguay, Grenell said there was still time for diplomacy. "I believe in diplomacy. I believe in avoiding war." Venezuela's President, Nicolás Maduro, signed the External Commotion Decree. Vice President Delcy Rodriguez said on September 29th, a measure that would grant him special powers in the event of an external military incursion. During a meeting with diplomats, Rodriguez explained that the decree would authorize the mobilization of the Bolivarian National Armed Force throughout the country and activate the militia within the nation's integrated defense system.
Any kind of external aggression, if United States military forces dared to do so, would be considered an external attack. And this emergency decree for external commotion would be activated immediately.
Earlier, on September 22nd, Maduro had already shown a folder with a label indicating it was the commotion decree that he was submitting for review by his advisors from the High Courts and the Attorney General's office, among others. The Vice President did not say when the document was signed. Calling Rubio a warmonger, the Vice President said what Rubio is doing is, "Against Venezuela is a threat prohibited by the United Nations."
What the United States government, the warmonger Marco Rubio, is doing against Venezuela is a threat prohibited by the United Nations Charter. And if they were to dare to attack our homeland, the External Commotion Decree gives the head of state special powers to act on defense and security and defend Venezuela.
Under the current constitution, a commotion decree remains in force for 90 days and can be extended once for another 90 days. At the same time, two senior figures in Venezuela's opposition said their movement has been planning for what to do if Maduro falls and has been talking with the Trump administration about that possibility. Trump administration officials have not confirmed whether there have been such exchanges, and the White House did not provide a comment on the matter. Pedro Uruchurtu, an advisor to Venezuela's opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, said in an interview that the opposition had developed a plan for the first 100 hours after Maduro's ouster that would involve a transfer of power to Edmundo Gonzalez, who ran for president against Maduro last year.
What we're talking about is an operation to dismantle a criminal structure, and that includes a series of actions and tools. It has to be done with the use of force because otherwise it wouldn't be possible to defeat a regime like the one we're facing. Our plans include persuading other governments to take diplomatic, financial, intelligence, and law enforcement actions.
A second senior member of the largely exiled Venezuelan opposition, who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss the sensitive issue, said, "We were talking to multiple US agencies. Independent monitors have said that the election was marred by fraud and that Gonzalez, who has since been exiled in Spain, was its legitimate winner." The landscape in Venezuela remains difficult for the opposition today, even though the majority of the country has indicated a strong desire for change.